So but the point I'm making is General Motors has more power to grow.
No. General Motors cannot get $1 out of your pocket unless you voluntarily pay it over. The government can, and that's the fundamental difference.
All right, here's where I'm going with this. You give me a hard time trying to get there, but I think as General Motors grows, I see the possibility of abuse. Or as any company grows, as the Donahue show grows. Suddenly I decide I've got all the answers and start preaching.
Absolutely.
Now your point is some gal come along and shoot me down pretty good and I lose, and that's the way the system is.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Good. Gotcha.
W.T. Grant, being an enormously big company, didn't keep it from going bankrupt. The New York Central, being a big company, didn't keep it from going bankrupt. Chrysler Corporation may be the third automobile company, but it's a $13 billion company. It's one of the biggest companies in this country. That isn't going to keep it from going bankrupt.
Here's the killer, though. When somebody does come along with a better mousetrap, the multinational mousetrap company buys it.
Oh.
And now we're back to mediocrity again. And the initiative and the talent of the little old man in the shoe shop who came up with a better is gone.
Temporarily, there are new people coming up with the little old men in the shoe shops. And one of the major reasons, as I was saying before, why multinationals are able to occupy the position they are is because government rules and regulations favor multinationals. Almost all government regulation favors big companies over little companies.
And you think Exxon ought to be able to buy Reliance Electric?
Of course.
And what else do you want them to buy? The hotels too? I mean,
well,
where are we going to stop?
Look, if you say to Exxon, look, one thing we're going to do is to make it impossible for you to make any money producing oil. What do you think their stockholders want?
Have a hard time getting the American people to agree with that type of thing.
First of all, Exxon doesn't buy anything. There isn't any Exxon. There are people. Exxon is a corporation owned by individual people. It's the stockholders of Exxon who ultimately are buying it. And if they don't like what Exxon is doing with their money, they have a perfectly good alternative. They can sell the stock. And as the stock went down, if the stockholders didn't like it, it would pay somebody to change the policy which Exxon is following. We have a far greater degree of control over what Exxon does than we have over what a lot of our government corporations do.
Milton Freedman returns in a moment.
Dr. Friedman, you've spoken a lot today about corporations. What does the average citizen do to help the inflation or to fight it?
There is nothing the individual citizen can do to help or fight inflation in his personal behavior. All attempts to tell you it's the consumer who's doing, the wasteful consumer who's producing inflation is an attempt by the government to shift the blame to somebody else. As a citizen, you can do a great deal. As a citizen, you can exercise your influence on your congressman at the elections to try to elect people who are committed to cutting government spending. As you may know, a group of us have been working for a long time on constitutional amendments to set a limit to total spending. Such amendments have now been passed in 5 states. We're working on a federal amendment, an amendment of the federal Constitution that would give the federal government a budget. I think the most important single step that can be taken to stop inflation is to cut down government spending. And you can play a role in that. Your personal life, you cannot do a thing, and don't let anybody kid you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I worked for Sears for 2.5 years, and every day I went past the little board that said Kmart 31, Sears 19, 21. And I was just wondering, what happened?
What do you mean, the price of the stock?
Yeah.
Yeah, they quoted it. And it was just,
I know. I've seen it all the time.
And I was in profit sharing, and I kind of started to wonder, with all Sears pushing to sell and to produce and just to be marvelous, what happened? Why is Kmart?
Why is Kmart? I'm not a business expert. I don't know why Kmart went ahead of Sears. If I knew that, I'd be in a different business. All I know is that they managed to appeal to the consumer. They made better decisions about what products to sell than Sears did. Now, who was responsible or why? You'd have to be an expert. But in a way, I'm not.
Kmart was better at discounting than Sears.
Well, fine. That's what consumers wanted. Fine. Then they served the consumer.
Didn't when Sears decided that it would approach or broach the issue of the arena of discounting, their sales shot up.
Well, they still
but their profits diminished.
I don't know anything about the details. For all I know, Sears is streamlined. It's going to go and beat Kmart. I don't have the slightest idea. Let the market decide.
The oil-rich Arabs are buying an awful lot of businesses in this country and farmland and things. Do you think it'd be wise for this country to institute law like Mexico did in the 50s and 60s, where it required that any company and land had to be at least over 50% owned by residents in the country?
I believe in individual freedom on an international basis and not on a national basis. I think you ought to be free to buy land if you want to in Mexico or anywhere else, and I would like those governments to let you. This country did not become great by preventing people from coming here from abroad and buying land and setting up businesses. Quite the other way around. And the reason we are making it so advantageous for them to buy here is because we're following such silly, counterproductive policies.
And didn't it do a lot of damage in Mexico, though, when
it did much more damage to Mexico when they nationalized the oil industry. On the contrary, their measures to keep foreigners from acquiring assets in Mexico did a great deal of harm to Mexico, not good. Yes. You must distinguish between what looks on the surface and what it really is underneath.
Over here.
Why is it we have so many millionaires and everything in the United States, and we still have so many impoverished people who try to get up into the world? Why is it we have this lack of money where people who can't support themselves decently and get a decent job, where all these big men are up on top making oodles and oodles of money? They don't need it. They can only eat that much, sleep in the bed.
And what do you suppose they do? If they don't eat it and don't use it, what do you suppose they do?
They hoard it.
And what do you mean they hoard it? You mean they put it under their pillows?
That's right. No, they keep investing it.
Investing it in what?
That's right, yeah.
What do they invest it in?
Well, in oil and everything, where, I mean, all these other people who are
What do they invest it in? Don't get off the subject.
No.
What do they invest it in?
Well, they invested in a lot of different things that the little people need.
Well, do they invest it in factories?
Yes.
Does some of that money end up in machines?
Yes.
Do those factories and machines provide ordinary working people with jobs or not? What do you suppose the productivity of this country would be and of the wage rate would be if the total amount of capital in this country today was what it was 100 years ago? Where do you suppose the improvements in productivity come from except from the investment by people of their savings? But let me go to your fundamental question. First place, nirvana is not for this world. There is no paradise. Of course we've got a lot of people who are poorly off, but if you look at it over time, if you get a sense of proportion, the well-being of ordinary people has been the main thing that has been improved by economic progress and economic growth and development. And most residual hard cases of poverty today are the result, again, of a failure of government. Why do we have a black teenage unemployment rate in 30 to 40%? Because of two failures of government. One, a failure to provide decent schooling, which is a governmental responsibility. Has been, whether it should be or not, it has been. And second, because of a minimum wage rate, which prevents those kids who haven't had decent schooling from getting jobs at low pay at which they can earn the skills on the jobs that would enable them to rise to higher pay. If you look at the sources of poverty, you will find most of them are derived from what I regard as wrong-headed government policies.
Well, I'm trying to look ahead because I'm almost going to retire.
Yes?
And it's pretty
Social
hard
Security
making
is
it go now before, you retire.
You're covering a lot of issues here. I might say, if Phil will pardon me, I'm going to cover all of these issues.
Yeah, please, let's get this plug in, because it is an important program, which is, that's all I need. This one is going to compete now with Guess Who. He's got his own TV show. I mean, I'm not insecure enough. This is on PBS, and your first show is in January.
January 11th. There will be 10 one-hour shows covering all of these issues in considerable depth. Half-hour documentary, half-hour studio discussion with people from the other side. I may say we invited Ralph Nader, but I don't believe he's accepted.
Just before we break here, and we have to, I want to make sure I understand you. Because the government sets a minimum wage, what does McDonald's do?
McDonald's? It can't hire as many teenagers. It improves its capital equipment to serve. It does less business because it has to charge higher hamburger prices. In the absence of a minimum wage, McDonald's would be able to offer a larger number of jobs to a larger number of youngsters, and they would be able to acquire some skills. And not only McDonald's.
So we hire more people get work. Younger
Now,
people.
the younger people would work, and they'd get a chance to develop their skills to